Make sure to drop a like and a comment on the video if you guys are enjoying the type of content that I'm putting out on YouTube lately. I look tiny. I look so shriveled up and small. And here we get into my testosterone levels. 3 days out from my natural bodybuilding show. Ladies and gentlemen, the video you have all been waiting for. My testosterone levels. We are going to be talking today about the blood test that I did 3 days before stepping on stage. So this was peak depletion. If you go back and you watch through the video that I filmed just before I flew out to go compete in my bodybuilding show, you'll see that in the beginning of the video, I'm actually drawing a blood sample out of my hand. Basically what you do is you take a little bit of a blood test, and I'll put up the video so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. You draw blood out of your finger and into a vial, and then you also do a mouth swab where you get a bunch of saliva, and then you put that in a capsule, and then you ship it off to a lab. And basically what they do is they tell you a bunch of your different blood markers. And I know a bunch of you guys are interested to hear what my testosterone levels look like, because it's honestly a fascinating topic, especially with natural bodybuilders, because if you didn't know this, getting to 6% body fat is not necessarily healthy for you, and I'll get into explaining why. But first off, I just wanted to mention that if you guys go into the description of this video, you'll find two different things. Number one, you'll find a free shredding guide that you can sign up to receive. So make sure you guys go check that out. Number two, you're also going to see the actual blood work clinic that I use to get my testosterone levels checked. It's called Let's Get Checked. They are the ones who send the blood work directly to my door. I am responsible for providing the sample and shipping it back to them, and then they give me the results. So as I was saying, when it comes to your blood work, it doesn't tend to look very pretty when you're getting down to 6% body fat as a natural bodybuilder, because you're pretty much in a state of controlled starvation. You're pretty hungry. Your cortisol levels are usually pretty high because you're stressed out. Your body is kind of, fighting back because it's not giving the amount of calories that it needs to be healthy and energetic. And so your energy starts to go down, you start to feel a lot more tired, and ultimately a lot of things go down, like your sex drive, as well as your testosterone slowly decreases. And I have personally known multiple people that have gotten incredibly hypogonadal from their natural bodybuilding competitions. For example, the normal nanogram per deciliter test range for a male is somewhere around 300 to about 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, depending on what chart you decide to use. So 300 to 1,000. I know people that have gone from 700 or 800 nanograms per deciliter when they're a normal healthy body fat percentage, all the way down to like 100 nanograms per deciliter, sometimes even less than that when preparing for a natural bodybuilding show. Because like I said, it's not healthy, it's not good for you. Your libido is in the trash, your energy is in the trash. Now, I've been doing this for quite a while. This was my 4th bodybuilding competition. This was my 4th time stepping on stage. And so I'm getting pretty good at navigating through prep and through the different struggles that you tend to run into. I can get into that a little bit more later in the video. But what I really wanted to talk about is, number one, my test levels and what it actually came back as. But then number two, the things that I ultimately did to have my testosterone levels end up this way. Because you might be thinking right now, well, Brandon went through a breakup 3 weeks out from his bodybuilding show. He was also super, super lean. He probably did not get the best testosterone results. If we pull up this Let's Get Checked chart here, as you can see, what's really, really nice about using Let's Get Checked is they can actually show you all of your previous tests, and you can just click through them one at a time once you get into the portal. And so you can see all of your blood work, how it has changed over time. And so pretty much what I have here is I have a blood test from when I went on a bulk. I have a blood test from the week of my last bodybuilding show. I also have a blood test from this most recent bodybuilding show, and I'm going to be comparing and contrasting and showing you guys the improvements that have been made. Okay, so first of all, let's start off with the bulking blood work, okay? So this is what my blood work normally looks like when I am bulking and I'm a normal healthy body fat percentage, usually weighing around like 215 to 220 pounds is where I feel the most healthy. As you can see, my estradiol is well within range at 23. Testosterone is right at 636 nanograms per deciliter. My sex hormone binding globulin is at 42, well within the range, and my free androgen index is sitting right around 56, okay? So that is my bulking numbers. Now, I'm going to show you my cutting numbers that I took. My bodybuilding show was on August 24th. I took this test on August 21st before I started the carb up process. So this was max depletion. If you go back and you watch the video when I'm taking this blood sample, I look tiny. I look so shriveled up and small. It's terrible, okay? So let's go ahead and pull these up. First of all, one of the coolest things that I noticed is that my cortisol is still in range. That honestly surprised me because you start to feel pretty stressed out towards the end of a bodybuilding show, but I'll talk about why I think my cortisol stayed in a good range later on. So my cortisol is still in range. My estradiol is still in range, which is awesome. Now, if you go down, my prolactin is actually slightly elevated. Now, that's something that's been kind of common in my blood work when I've taken it when I'm cutting. So that wasn't too crazy. When it comes to getting a super accurate read on your blood work, what you should actually do is refrain from hard training for the couple days leading into you drawing your blood sample. I did not do that, so training could be having an impact on this as well as a couple of other different variables. But one thing that's very important to keep in mind for the testosterone side of things is making sure that you take your testosterone right in the morning as you wake up. Because if you look at the diurnal chart as far as testosterone goes, when a man wakes up in the morning, his testosterone is highest, and then it goes down after that. So if you're taking your testosterone later in the day or after you've eaten, you can pretty much scratch it. It's like a null test. You want to test to see what your testosterone levels are, peak in the morning before you've eaten anything, okay? So there are multiple things that can play a role in making your blood work look a little wonky. The prolactin levels being a little bit elevated is something that's happened to me in the past. So when it comes to getting a super accurate reading, I would want to refrain from training, but I didn't, obviously. I was going into the show. And here we get into my testosterone levels. 3 days out from my natural bodybuilding show, probably sitting somewhere around 6% body fat. I came in at 587 nanograms per deciliter test level. And you guys may think, wow, that's fantastic. And it is. That is pretty solid because considering during my bulks, I get usually up to about 600 to 700 range. The fact that I only dropped to about 587 is awesome. It's fantastic. But there is more to the story because a lot of people just like to measure the size of their schlongs based off of their testosterone levels. What are your testosterone levels? Well, my testosterone levels are 400. What are your testosterone levels? Well, my testosterone levels are 1200. I'm so much cooler than you. Not exactly. When there is a difference within the natural reference range, so I guess I probably shouldn't have used 1200 nanograms per deciliter as an example. We'll say 1000 nanograms per deciliter versus 400 nanograms per deciliter. It doesn't mean that much because the truth is there's only a certain amount of testosterone that's circulating in your body. And when you are in the normal range, a higher testosterone reading compared to a lower testosterone reading between different individuals does not mean that one individual is going to be able to build a whole lot more muscle than the other individual just because their testosterone is higher. If you're in the normal range and you're not too high, you're not super physiological, but you're also not hypogonadal, which means that you're way lower than you should be, you're going to build the amount of muscle It's very, very similar to another person that is also within that normal range, if that makes sense. So to be honest with you, the total testosterone number doesn't mean a whole lot. Now, what does mean a lot? Number one, your free testosterone is going to be a much bigger indicator of how much testosterone is actually circulating in your body. And that has to do with your sex hormone binding globulin, which if you look at mine, it is elevated. It is about 70 nanomoles per liter. So when it comes to sex hormone binding globulin, to give you a crash course, the testosterone that is circulating in your body, the actual testosterone that your body uses, is determined by the amount of sex hormone binding globulin that you have. So if your sex hormone binding globulin is high, it means that your body isn't actually using a lot of the testosterone that is free testosterone in your body, if that makes sense. And ultimately, that's what tells you your free testosterone levels, which if you go check my free testosterone levels, I'm sitting at 7.5. That's pretty low. The range for that is 4.7 to 24. I'm sitting at 7.5. So to be honest with you, my testosterone levels, the total, it's great that I was able to maintain a high total, but as far as free testosterone levels go, it's pretty low in the normal range, and I would hope that that number would continue to go up as I get back into my normal routine, eat a little bit more, get my energy levels back, become a normal functioning human being at a normal functioning body fat percentage again. So I would hope that my free testosterone would see some improvement as I continue to reverse diet and begin to become healthy again. You'll also notice that my free androgen index is slightly lowered. Now these are just all differences that are ultimately coming from the fact that I am cutting and I am training very, very hard leading into my bodybuilding show. Like I said, it's very cool to see that the cortisol is there in the normal range, because ultimately what I did this prep that I haven't been able to do on other preps that I feel had such a significant effect on my testosterone levels, because I'll show you what the testosterone levels looked like last time I was cutting. Okay, so you see the prolactin is slightly elevated, the cortisol slightly like it's within range, but it's a little bit higher. Estradiol is really like pretty low. The testosterone's all the way down at 400 nanograms per deciliter. So this was for my last bodybuilding show. And then my sex hormone binding globulin is elevated. So my free testosterone is pretty low, but my sex hormone binding globulin is also elevated. My free androgen index is also low. So that shows that I've actually made some pretty significant improvements since my last show when it came to stepping on stage. I have actually improved my testosterone levels, and I feel like I'm a much, much lower body fat percentage than I was when I took this test. So I'm a lower body fat percentage, I have a higher free testosterone, and at the same time, you know, like my other blood markers are actually more on point, which is pretty cool to take a look at. And ultimately, the main ways that I was able to maintain a higher testosterone level while cutting this time around, and I really, really put extra emphasis on this and tried to get the best testosterone reading that I could. Number one is I slept like a baby. Oh my goodness. I slept until I woke up every single night starting 8 weeks out from my bodybuilding show. I do not typically do this. If you do not know me, I am a workaholic. I like waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, rolling out of bed, going straight to work after taking a cold shower. I did not take that approach this time, because as much as I am a champion and encouraging people to work hard and push themselves to the limit, when you're entering a bodybuilding show, what you have to understand is that all stress goes into the same bucket. All stress goes into the same bucket. The work stress goes into the same bucket. The cold plunge, that's a stress on your body, goes into the same bucket. The excessive amounts of cardio, all that stress, whether it's good for you or bad for you, goes into the same bucket. And when that bucket is full and it starts to overflow, that is bad. So what I did was I went out of my way during this prep, starting 8 weeks out, to make things as comfortable for myself as possible. Don't get me wrong, I would still roll out of bed and pretty much work from sunrise till sundown, but I let my body sleep until I woke up every single night. And that ended up with me getting anywhere from 8.5 to 9.5 hours on average every single week. 8.5 to 9.5 hours of solid quality sleep, being asleep. If I messed up one day, I only got 7 hours, I would compensate and I would get 10 hours the next day. I was destroying the sleep side of things. I was on top of it. I was on my game. And I cannot emphasize to you guys enough, if you guys are struggling with getting your testosterone levels higher or anything along those lines, focus on getting more sleep. It is the biggest aspect. Now, I also want to talk about how I took out things that were stressing me out, like number one, waking up early. That's a big one that plays into the sleep, but also taking things like cold showers. I actually cut it out this time. I might re-implement it, but I cut it out because I just noticed that it was stressing me out and it was making me a little bit more wired and anxious, and I didn't like it. I tried to give myself a little bit of a break. Now, the third thing that I also started doing is that I started carb cycling much harder than I have in the past. So normally what my nutrition looks like is I eat higher carbs on training days, and then I'll eat higher fats on rest days. And the reason why I do that is because carbs are your energy source. You want the carbs because you want to be able to train hard. You want the fats because the fats in your body are in charge of keeping your hormone functioning, okay? It's in charge of hormone function with your fats. The carbs are your short-term energy source that you need in order to perform well in the gym, build and maintain muscle, okay? So what I would do is on days when I wasn't training, I would pump the fats high, okay? So I'm talking like all the way up to like 90 to 100 grams of fat per day, which is pretty high for me. Then on the days when I was training, I would actually increase the carbs and I would lower the fats. So mainly, like, your testosterone levels are going to be determined by the quality of the fats in your diet. And most people diet their fats, they crush their fats into the ground when they're cutting. And that's a mistake, because ultimately you want to keep your testosterone levels high because that's what makes you feel good. I'm telling you guys right now, this is a saying, and there's a hint of, there's truth in it. It's not, there's a little bit more nuance to it. But basically the saying goes like this: macros determine how you look. Micronutrients determine how you feel. Okay, and when you are eating a lot more higher fat, higher micronutrient dense foods like eggs, I would overload on eggs on my rest days. When you're eating those foods, you start to feel a lot better. But then you want the carbs for the performance side of things. So you don't want to completely alienate those, or your workouts are going to suffer and you're going to lose muscle. I felt like I found a really, really good balance during this prep of being able to carb cycle and increase my carbs and decrease my fats, and then increase my fats and decrease my carbs, to find a point where I was very, very comfortable and I felt very, very energized. And ultimately, when I started feeling crappy, I would give myself an extra rest day, which is something that I also did during this prep that I haven't done on other preps, is I actually decreased my volume very, very substantially going into the show. And I also increased the amount of rest days I was giving myself. I would train for 2 days and then take a rest, and then I would train for 3 days and take a rest, maybe train for 4 days, take a rest, but I would never go more than 4 days without taking a full rest day. And there were a lot of times when I was only training 4 times or so per week, because I wanted to give myself a lot of extra rest and a lot of extra sleep. So there you go. That is ultimately my blood work. A lot of people like attack me on social media. They're like, oh yeah, post your blood work so we can see it. I post my blood work every single year. I post it all the time. You guys can go back. I've made tons of videos like this. I am natural. These This by no means proves that I'm natural, but you can see that my testosterone levels are within the normal range. I'm by no means suppressed from exogenous androgens, and I am by no means super physiological from exogenous androgens. So when it comes to my blood work, hopefully this helped you guys kind of get a really good idea of how to go about looking at your own blood work. Make sure you guys check out Let's Get Checked in the description down below if you guys are interested in getting yours done, because this is a really, really good way of getting a good window into your life where you can see, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is what my blood work looks like, and correlate the two, see what improvements you can make and which, things you can just kind of leave the same because they're already in range. So hopefully this video helped you guys out a lot. Make sure to check out the free shredding guide down in the description below. Make sure to drop a like and a comment on the video if you guys are enjoying the type of content that I'm putting out on YouTube lately. I'm going to try to continue to post very, very frequently. So yeah, you guys have quite a few other interesting videos coming up that you can look forward to. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace.